Hey, what even exactly is culture? Culture is such a vast thing to talk about in terms of humanity itself. According to the Merriam-Webster dictionary, culture is basically defined as a customary belief, social forms, and material traits of a racial, religious, or social group that shapes the ideas and perceptions of people. Hello, my name is Kaisen, and I have been somewhat forced to make a video about my culture. Yeah, of all the people to ever ask, it had been assigned to a boy who has been raised in Selangor for basically his entire life and does not really know anything about his own culture. Yes, this little guy right here. Yeah, him. So practically, I've just been assigned to talk about my cultural profile and what I've experienced all throughout my life and how different it is and blah blah blah. It's right in the details, but I'll get to it soon. So as most of us know, Selangor actually resides in Malaysia, which is a country that is comprised of Malays, Chinese, and Indians, mainly. It has such an amazing cultural diversity that through years of cultivating and growing from each other, sharing each other's own individual cultures, and making one massive ball of a culture. Being raised in Malaysia practically my entire 20 years of my existence, and being born a Malaysian Chinese male, I think, it's basically molded my vision into certain aspects of life and makes me what I am now in the present day. So today I want to actually talk about how complex and all getting into the nitty gritty of my personal cultural profile, and maybe it can help me understand what it means for me to be a cultural being. As previously stated before, I come from a middle-class income household as a Malaysian Chinese family with the most horribly urban and horribly congested city known to many by Puchong. If you ask the average Puchong citizen what is the normal complaint that they will get, it would be this. Oi! Why so much traffic? My parents and their parents before them actually did not come... What? My parents and their parents before mine actually originated from Malaysia, which in turn makes me the fourth generation of Malaysian Chinese people in my family. I don't know whether to be proud of that or not. It's undoubtedly true that I actually grew up much easier than other people in my life, or even people from around the world. Having been nurtured into a community of people that largely resembled me and my family, that also made me feel safe and protected. I mean, not only that, but I never had any financial troubles. Unless you count the amount of times my dad actually denied me for getting a 3DS as a kid. I still harbor that feeling even as a 20-year-old. I still want that 3DS a lot. It's really cool. I never felt that I was ever in a horrible living conditions or that things were just really dangerous around me that happened in my life. And that's something I forever am grateful for. On another note, actually being born as a male, I think. Wait, hold on. Am I a male? Yes. Yep. Alright, so I'm a male. Being born as a male does bring a lot of influence in my everyday life and how I react and my behaviors and such. So a professor in communications known as Mark Orb, you can see him right here, he has once stated that all societies do have social hierarchies, and that those at the top of the societal pyramid have always been the greatest influence for communication style of the entire society. Unfortunately, in the case of my country, we have been well known as a society that follows the patriarch. As Malaysia is a Southeast Asian country, there's actually a prevalent amount of sexism and misogyny within this country and the culture. I do heavily agree by the fact that being born as a male lets me have a far easier lifestyle and does not make me worry about a lot of things that society expects of women, let alone Asian women. I did not come to understand that until actually somewhat recently, as I wanted to understand and enlighten myself about the struggles of women in society. To relate this story in cultural communications actually, I would like to say that the similarities, differences dialectic right here is a way to describe how I slowly got to know and get closer to some of my female friends, even though our way of verbal communication and our behaviors may sometimes vastly differ. On that same note, I could never imagine nor experience some of those downright horrid men in my life that I've talked to before interacting with me if I was a woman. In fact, I'm really fortunate to say I've never faced a day of any sexual harassment, any catcalling, objectification, or any of that sort. On another note of my personal cultural profile, I really remember a lot of superstitious myths and rituals and a lot of stories that my grandmother had told me. And whether her advice was actually scientifically based or not, it still shaped a good portion of my thought process as a child, even until now. I think one of the pinnacles of Chinese superstition will be like,
"Oh, you must eat all your grains of rice on your plate, or else your liver would have a lot of acne based on the amount of rice grains,"
or something of that sort. In a way, and as I grew up, it was much more understandable why my grandmother carried on the tradition and history of these baseless superstitions, as it was something that her mother did before her, and what her mother did before her. It's such a generational thing. And again, it was not like the superstition was inherently bad, but it rather shaped the way I ate my rice for the rest of my life forever. And I think another ritual I actually want to talk about within Chinese culture, and especially Buddhism, is actually what some may call it as Tomb Sweeping Day. But a lot of Malaysians, especially Chinese Malaysians, like to call it as Qingming. The festival has been revered as one of the highlights of the years in my household, and assumingly for a lot of Chinese people too, as it is one of the few times that my entire family, inclusive of my cousins, aunties, and uncles, to gather and pay respects for all of our ancestors. But above all else, it was our grandmother who passed away in 2019, just as a reminder. As I said before, I am not as cultured as I seem to be. Whoa, what a shocker. As my family does not predominantly speak Mandarin in the household, let alone to even our relatives sometimes. This is due to the fact that I've practically lived all my life in the urban city and have essentially conformed myself to the modern cityscape lifestyle. In terms of interpersonal culture, remedial things like communication between friends are vastly different in comparison to how I would actually communicate with my family or any authority figures like teachers. For example, using common slang even within my generation, such as bruh, would be really weird when it's not talking to my friend. As when talking to my friends is one of the most idealistic ways we converse and helps alleviate any sort of tension. However, slang such as this does not really work for people way over my age or cultures directly outside of my own personal culture profile. Malaysia's cultures in terms of verbal communication is such a beautiful melting pot of words and slang that originated from other languages such as English, Malay, Tamil, Mandarin, as well as some other dialects such as Cantonese or Hokkien. It all comes together to create Malaysia's own brand of the English language, known as Manglish, which can roughly be described as an informal language that is a very simplified version of the English language. This relates back to my own personal cultural profile, as I tend to envelop and incorporate Manglish into my daily routine of speech. Now, to answer the final question and the thing that we're actually supposed to answer, who am I as a cultural being? To put it bluntly, I do not think there will ever be a definitive answer to what my cultural profile equates to. My personal cultural profile is like a canvas that has been painted on from the past, the present, and the future. It represents all of the ideas, stories, and perceptions of things in my life that I still hold to this day. It brings color and life to everyone I have ever interacted with within my own existence, as well as so many memories that came along with them. My personal cultural profile represents me in my whole, if I were to try and answer that question. And to end this with wise words from my friend, he had this to say, and I have to say it in this way so that you would know. Culture is so cool, dude. Like, imagine making a really awesome story, but you write it your entire life. Thank you.